Hello, Morland, and welcome to Speaking About Everything. With me, I have a young man who's been here before, a politician, former Minister of Rumi, now he's a Member of Parliament. MP Doran, how are you doing, sir?
Good day, Oral. I'm doing great, and good day to your listeners as well. I'm doing good. You know, it's always a pleasure to be here, and it's more of a pleasure to be in the land of the living. So, giving thanks for that.
Yeah, I like how you put it, the land of the living. That's true.
For real. You have to be grateful.
Yeah. So, you served as Minister of Rumi for 4 years, right?
Correct. Four and change.
Right. Now you're in Parliament, and
Yes.
You look back at that era. How you feel about it?
Well, actually, a couple of weeks ago, I celebrated 7 years in public service. So, counting being a member of Parliament before, Minister of Justice, Minister of Rumi, and now back as a member of Parliament. And it definitely was a reflection because, you know, during that period, so many things happened in St. Martin, so many changes, but it also was a lesson to me that how fast time flies. And all in all, Oral, when I'm finished with this trajectory as public service, you have to look back and you have to have something to look back to in terms of what will you be remembered for? What will your legacy be? And for me, I'm still working on my legacy. A lot of accomplishments came under my tenure, both as a Minister of Justice, former Member of Parliament back then, and a good bit as Minister of Rumi. So I'm adding to that, and ultimately the goal has to be enhancing, in one way or another, the quality of life for your people.
You also serve as Deputy Prime Minister.
Indeed, correct, during that tenure.
But you're a young guy. You're 30 already?
I just actually, a couple of days ago, I celebrated my 33rd birthday.
Okay, so, I mean, you got a long way to go.
Yeah.
You talk about legacy, you got a long way to go.
No, but what I'm saying is that you're building it. Everything you do, even today, yesterday, you're building towards that.
That's brilliant.
But you have to be able to say, Oral, hey, this is what I want for my country, and this is what I've done to get to that goal.
And the reason why I bring that up because I've never had a politician on this show, ever. And this show is more than 40 years that use that word. You see, that's why.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We will discuss it in private.
Yeah.
This person is building a legacy, etc. But they've never said it publicly.
Well,
that's why I was scared.
It's a force for everything.
Right.
I'm glad to set a record then after 40 years.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
So, how is your experience in politics? Because look, it could be tough.
Yes, indeed.
Even dealing with us as the media, it could really be tough on a politician.
Yes.
And then you have the public out there and everyone else. Did that affect you?
I mean, at the end of the day, you know, I'm a human being. I have a family. And for me, the most, I would say, the most unpleasant thing or the most unpleasant experiences is when people take it a notch further and, you know, start to mess with your family, so to speak.
Yeah.
Whether it's on the workplace or more so in certain instances, I unfortunately had to deal with issues with my kids, you know, being attacked and different things. But, you know, God is good. He was able to keep me mentally strong to handle those things. And I'm still here now, and I'm just grateful for that things didn't escalate to anything extreme.
Yeah, I guess when family is brought into it, then it really gets really ugly.
Yes, for all of us. We're all human beings,
Definitely.
you know, and especially when it comes to your kids, the minute they come into this earth, you automatically take an oath to be their guide and to be their protectors. So that, of course, it's what it is in itself.
Yeah. When you serve as Minister of Rumi for over 4 years,
Correct.
There's been a lot of issues with the current minister saying X, Y, Z, and saying it was a minister before me that did that. What's going on there?
Well, I mean, I can't say exactly what is going on, but what I can say for sure, and it's clear to the public as well, is that it's a whole, like, in certain instances, a way to get away from making certain decisions. When it's something negative, or less positive than so to say, it's the form of government. When it's something positive, you don't hear anything. They take all the praise for it. And it's something across the board in the government, actually, so it's not only in Vrummy. And it's quite interesting. Just to draw a reference, I'm sure you can remember during my tenure is when we were busy with the the whole nation building thing, and how we're gonna put together our national development vision, and how we're gonna put more things to bring awareness. And under that time is when I took a decision to name the village after a great pioneer, Mr. Jocelyn Arndell. Last week, I believe it was. Even before that, the construction works for the repairs of the village started. It started with this current government, but the initial planning, bidding, tender, everything took place with us. Everything was there set in stone, and they just continued. No new tender, nothing new was done. But you don't hear this was done by the former administration, because it's something positive, right?
Yeah.
And then even last week, they had an unveiling of, I think it's like a sort of a statue. I didn't get to see it as yet personally, because I was away in between and so forth. But a sort of a bust, I saw a picture of the late Mr. Jocelyn Arndell, which is a great thing. But I didn't hear it was the former government. So I'm saying all that to say, when it's something great and positive, you don't hear anything. But when it's something a little less, a little controversial or a little less positive, it was the former government. And I believe that, a year has gone in the meantime, and it's time for this current administration to do your job. At the end of the day, was my tenure as minister or member of parliament or any point for that matter spotless? Of course not, because we've made certain errors, and you always, hindsight is 2020. During COVID, we made certain decisions that when you look back and say, okay, maybe I should have gone left instead of right. But that's life, that's evolution, that's evolving. But there was never a point in time where I would say, oh, it was Christopher Emmanuel, or it was Chris Weaver, it was Miklos Hitterson. All those persons that I mentioned were my predecessors. So you have to, when you're taking on a job, first and foremost, you have to know what kind of job you're going to do. You have to have your vision, and you have to execute that. But if you continue to look back, and it's clear as what's going to happen, because a year has gone in the meantime, we're going to have a term of no progress. Because I have yet to see anything that has been done now under this current administration that is new. Everything is just a continuation. And the positive, they pull out and claim it, and the negativity, they shoot backwards. And I don't believe that as a country, we're going to be able to grow where that is concerned. And that I find quite unfortunate, because I see a lot of missed opportunities. I have yet to see the vision of this current administration.
When you hear the acquisitions of building permits, etc., and that were approved on the youth, and what's true and what's not true there? Because the public is hearing a lot of things, all these development, and you're no longer there in office, but the person that's there is saying, well, I didn't do it, the guy before me did it.
Well, it's kind of a broad question, because I think we'd have to...
try to keep it, I don't want to be too specific.
We'll have to zoom in on each individual case for me to tell you, okay, what is true, what's not true. What I know for certain is that during my tenure, I was the minister of ROMI to approve building permits. I wasn't signing residency permits, I wasn't signing business licenses. So yes, for 4 years, that's what I did. During the whole COVID pandemic oral, the country was on a standstill, lockdown, no economic development. And I sat with some of my colleagues, and we were brainstorming on ways and means that we're going to be able to keep the economy afloat. And one of the points were, listen, we have for years and years so much backlog in building permits. Let us put together a task force, which I did, interdepartmental task force, where I pulled different persons from different departments within the Ministry of ROMI, and all they were busy tasked with is to approve and advise on building permits, so that we could keep the construction sector booming, since nothing else was moving. We had no planes, we had no ships, we had nothing going on. And that has proven to be a great asset, because it helped us to keep our economic development flowing. And those are not only my words, this is factual information. You can go back and you can see. We had one point in time, the current Minister of Finance, during, I think it was a budget amendment of 2024 last year, she mentioned that on the floor of Parliament, that construction is what kept St. Martin afloat during that period. We have the current minister of TIAT mentioned the same thing in a different presentation, talking about the economy, going back to 2020 and 2021 and so forth, giving us sort of a, numbers you have to go backwards and come forward to do the comparisons. And those were the points that were brought forward. So I find it quite interesting then, so to speak, that now at this juncture, where whether a group, rightfully so, I'm not knocking anyone for having their expressing themselves and how they feel about particular projects, because oral, we have to realize that we have conservatives, we have progressives, we have all kind of different people from different walks of life, and you have the right to feel how you feel about what you feel. But if you ask me, if I deliberately sat down and thought of a plan and we're gonna, stickily do something to hurt the people of St. Martin, absolutely not. That never took place. To add to it, going into the term as Vromi, I reached out to a top environmentalist on the island, very well known, local, and I asked them, hey, listen, would you be interested to be the chief of staff of my cabinet? Because for a long time, persons have been talking about, the environment being neglected. And I'm sure I don't know if it's on this show or different platforms in the media, I mentioned it's a tough thing to be the minister responsible for development and at the same time be the minister responsible for the environment. I always believe that our ministries need to change up a bit. You can put whether health with environment as is done in different parts of the kingdom as well. But I think that that's very conflicting because what would happen is you have the policy department, which is seen as a sort of the environmental sector of the ministry because they handle more policies based on environment. And then you have the infrastructure part and the new works part and the permits part, which deal with more the development and getting things done. And I believe that a mixture of those under one hat, it's kind of conflicting when it comes to, and I mentioned it publicly.
But they also claim that you will ignore one for the other.
No. That's definitely not the case. And anyone that is saying that would have to substantiate it. We live in an environment now, we're in 2025, where everything is on black and white. We had instances where the minister would send representatives to the court, I think it was last year or early this year, without any documentation and say basically they don't know and papers are lost. I mean, listen, that don't exist. Or just if you could understand government system, I'm sure maybe you're familiar or not familiar.
Right, I work for government at the head of government.
Okay, so you're very familiar with DIV and how that works and the whole digitalization system where everything is on record. So anything that you need can be provided. And that's why I say it is quite interesting sometimes that some of the stories that we hear, but it's very important for people to remain cognizant of the fact that everything you do as a minister, it's documented. So you can't run around that. And if there's proof of any wrongdoing, any malintent, any stuff, and I think you should bring it forward. And I think it would have been brought forward a long time ago, which is not the case, obviously, because procedures were followed. And I always say this, have you seen where in any one of these controversial permits or what one would deem as controversial, because as you would deem it controversial, somebody would see it as a progress, or many more would see it as progress than those that see it as controversial. Do you see where it was negatively advised against and the minister made an executive decision and went other way? No. Because one thing is for sure, I had a lot of different checks and balances, and especially when it came to building permits before approval is actually done. And I always would, in one particular case, that is widely known, but I wouldn't, call a particular project out, where some local developers decided to do something grand. I was on a back and forth with this group. When I say the ministry, for over 2 years. They had to correct this, they had to correct that. And they complied with all their necessities and they were able to get something approved. We have another instance with a project that is being criticized right now as well, where the Nature Foundation was in the meetings from the beginning to the end. And I made sure of that because of the
project that is used.
That's the one in Belia.
Okay.
Because of the potential discussions that could come out of it and the area. Then I made sure when it was presented to me first, I say, listen, I sat in meetings with the Nature Foundation and the developers before this thing was even approved, and all the green lights were given for what was there. Things had to be changed.
So there were no changes made by the developer after they met with you?
Absolutely not. The only changes were made was the changes that the Nature Foundation asked for, because that was a prerequisite to come to me ultimately for ultimate approval and or disapproval. And that's why I'm saying, Oral, all the discussion, let's put it to rest and bring on the documentation. Let's have an audit done where all these files are provided to Parliament, which is the body that represents the people, so that everybody could be clear. But the whole misrepresentation of the truth in a lot of these cases, it's not doing any justice for the ministry and or the population.
So you said that you didn't do anything wrong?
With those cases, nothing was overturned or anything. No, nothing was changed. So the impression is like, you would swear I went with, in this case, in one of the cases, Mr. Lake, and went on the kinip tree and signed a building permit, and nobody was aware of it. That's totally untrue. It went through the entire process, a vigorous one to say the least. And you know what's interesting, Oral? I find it so ironic, for lack of a better word, that we have all this energy to go against our own that are trying to do something to enhance their quality of life, their family quality of life, but for others, we turn a blind eye and they reign supreme. So that is my issue.
And that permit was signed under your...
yes, it was.
But now there's a big issue with it.
They're saying it. Where's the big issue? They are saying that is a big issue. Where is the big issue, or what is the big issue, or what then was done illegally or not correct, or what procedures weren't followed? They mentioned about a misclassification in the National Gazette. But I sure you read the Herald last week where they're saying that the minister right now has misclassified so many building permits. I'm going to explain you this, Oral. You have two things. You have commercial, you have residential. This condo project, it's a large-scale residential project. Now, there are, let's say, where there's a gym, cafeteria in the building, but that's for the residents. That's not seen as commercial. You can't come from outside and go and purchase things there based on what I was made to understand. That was that.
It's just for the residents.
It's for the residents. And that was the classification that was given.
In case you just joined us, I'm Earl Gibbs here. And speaking of everything, my guest is the former Minister of Romy and also former Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Doran. When we come back, we'll continue to speak with him right here on Speaking of Everything. Please stay with us right back.
We are vibrant, expressive, warm, and diverse. Together, we conquer, and now we expand into new horizons, giving you more of the best. Introducing our new Bankomatico Plus with wider acceptance, purchase protection, and enhanced security. Whether you're online, traveling, or in paradise, experience more with Windward Island Bank. Bankomatico Plus. More of the best.
My guest right here on Speaking of Everything is the former Minister of Romy and also former Deputy Prime Minister, now Member of Parliament, MP Doran, and we're here speaking with him now. Because of the length of the show, I can't go into any detail on any projects, etc. But there's another issue with the budget.
Yes.
And what's going on there?
Oral,
I know you're not Minister of Finance.
Normally they would say that's the $1 million question. I would say that's the 500 million guilder question, because that is the amount of our budget, a little over. Months ago, when we realized, because the budget was passed, if I'm not mistaken, on the 17th of January, let's go back. Before we go to the budget being passed, let's go back to December, when they tried to rush the budget through to the Central Committee meeting. I stood there firmly and I said, Minister, Chair of Parliament, we are rushing something with no clear reason as to why we're pushing it through. We only received these documents moments ago. Let us please take a pause for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Let us go through the information in order for us to have constructive dialogue. If you ask me, Earl, I believe that the intentions weren't genuine back then, in the sense of it was just about Let us try to show up the former Minister of Finance. Let us try to set a record. But setting a record and not doing your proper due diligence can lead to far worse consequences. The first words that came out of my mouth during that meeting was hartstikke spoed is zelden goed, meaning to say, when you rush and do things, it come out bad. You understand? And I said, listen, let's take our time with this. Yes, we're going to do what we have to do, but let us. Yeah. And guess what? It went through. During the public meeting, the minister still brought certain documentation which is in the 2025 budget, but referencing 2024. So that was an error that was highlighted by one of my colleagues where, hey, listen, I mentioned this before. You still bring it back in an erroneous state, so to speak. They went back. They brought some amendments from their end. So government brought 4 amendments. The parliament submitted 3 amendments. Everything went through with a heavy heart. You can watch the video. You can look back at the whole debate. I said I'm going to support this because I want progress for my country, but I was heavy on the not wanting to support it because of the manner in which everything was done.
So what you're against mainly in this budget?
The way they presented the budget, they didn't give us enough time to go through the documentations. There were instances where we asked for certain information. We see where different ministers mention you don't need that information in order to approve the budget. Mind you, I'm a member of parliament. We have a chair, which is the middle man, or in this case, the middle woman between government and the parliament, the mouthpiece from our end. And they are telling us when we ask for, let's say, for instance, I'm just going to draw a reference. I asked the Minister of Romy, can I be provided with all the numbers for the court cases and how much was spent, Oh, but you don't need that to approve and or disapprove. Now I say, Madam Chair, the ministers cannot speak on what we need and what we don't need. If we ask for something which is public record, we have to get it. And if it's confidential, then we have to get it through the confidential route. But you can't tell me what I need to make a decision. We had that with Vromi, we had that with Finance, we had that with the Ministry of TIAT, and if I'm not mistaken, Education as well. Push come to shove, they rush it through. Remember, they have the numbers. So if I ask for a postponement for an hour to be able to dissect certain information, another MP could say no, they don't agree, and then it goes to a vote, and they reign supreme because you have the numbers. But having the numbers, and in this case, it's better to walk alone at times than with a big crowd going in the wrong direction. And just because something is accepted by the majority, that does not make it just. And that is a clear case to this situation that we're in. So we approve it in January. About 3 weeks later, I sounded the alarm. Why hasn't the budget been published? What is going on here? I was told, hey, listen, this is not the first time the budget take long to be published. Relax, everything's going to be all right. Then we see a week pass, a month pass. We had a press conference highlighting all the different things. Why isn't the budget being passed? Then the story changed. Oh, there was an error. And Oral, I'll tell you here on this public platform, the error was known as soon the budget was passed. But the government was not being transparent in coming and telling the parliament, hey, listen, we made a mistake here, here, and here. My call back in February was, guys, bring back the budget. Let's correct these errors that were made, and let's move forward. I believe what is happening right now is just a matter of ego, not wanting to look bad, because the same way it was bragged upon, this is the first time we had a budget so early. This is the first time that the budget is come back twice to Parliament. I think in the whole kingdom, I've never seen something like that before. And guess what? We could stay and I could stay here and throw rocks and destroy them with it, because I brought clear points and I brought clear reservations as to the manner in which it was going. Or I could say, listen, guys, it's for Country St. Martin, bring it back, let's get it going. But up to now, even after those different calls, they have not complied with coming back and saying, hey, let's go. Because what is happening, I believe that you're holding on to a mistake just because of how long you spent making it, and it will be more to the detriment of our people than in their best interest. Because here we are, you could say we in May. Reason why I say that, Carnival starting today, and before you blink your eye and open, we in May going down the road. We had a budget so-called approved in January, but you haven't brought it back, you haven't published it, because you can't publish it because of the errors that were made on the majority amendments that came from the government. So they brought something that was wrong, incorporated wrong, and now it's still wrong, and it can't be published because of it being wrong.
So up to now, we all haven't received the next version of that budget.
Any what, sorry?
We all have not received the changes to that budget.
No, we haven't received the changes. We were told that there are changes. A whole long letter and memos and different things indicated that there are issues, but no clear-cut solution as to the way forward. They were even trying to go do this, something they call a novelle, where they apply a law that don't even exist in our constitution, that is used in the first chamber, second chamber system in the Netherlands, to apply it here. We can't do that. That is a sort of a tool to make certain corrections, but we don't have that in our constitution. We don't have that in our laws to be able to apply something like that. So even as far as trying to do something illegal was in their thought process, because it's written in one of the correspondences that this is a potential option that they're going to explore. They try to get the Secretary General of Parliament to say yes, he or she agrees with certain information in order to get it approved, which it didn't fly because they cannot decide for something that Parliament has to decide on. So for me, to wrap it up, for those that it is not clear, for the members of our country, our citizens, they have to bring back the budget in order for the corrections to be made and or approve or disapprove in order to move forward.
So then probably we'll see it after Carnival then, probably.
Well, I feel like when the alarm was sounded in February, we could have done it back then. But what we're doing now is a professional way of wasting the people's time, wasting our time in trying to go around it.
You know, when you look at Simrat and development,
Yes.
we only have private investment in development. There's no public investment, basically.
You see, and that was one of my, it still is, one of the things that I've been very passionate about in terms of home ownership and different housing projects. I presented many ideas during my tenure, and all was shut down. And I could say right now, looking back, it was not about the message, it was not about the project, it was more about the messenger. And in order for us to whether keep Doran down or so he don't get too strong, we're going to block all these different initiatives. Right now, as we speak, Oral, the project, the plan for Vineyard Heights and its development, which is over the bank, affectionately known as over the bank, that project is there.
That's stalled, basically.
Yeah,
That's
it's
stalled.
completely stalled. I even won the court case before leaving office. It's still there stalled. I just pray and hope that this current minister will pick it up and move forward. Because one of the things that I always say, right, this is not for Jurendi. This is not about Minister Gomes or former Minister Doran. These are things that we can help our population own their own homes. And to shoot something like that down just because of who brought it up, and I think we're extremely we are on the extremely wrong path, and it will not serve any purpose.
But wasn't there a ruling too in the court that tied the hands of even the government?
Eventually, because what happened was, just to give some context to it, in 2019, I believe, it's when it officially became government owned, but we had instances where former ministers gave promissory notes, like I think it was about a week before the election back in 2016, saying that this land is not ours, but if it becomes ours in the future, it's yours, which it doesn't exist. You cannot give away something that isn't yours. So when this whole misconception was brought about that Doran gave away land that was given to others, it is impossible. You're a property owner, you're a homeowner, Oral. Is that possible to take land from somebody and give it to somebody else? Is that possible?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. In Simrat, we are famous for stealing people's land. But,
okay, that in that sense. But is it possible administratively?
I don't know. there's different techniques, and the reason I say that cautiously, and I'll tell you after the show, because there's so many things
Land was stolen from you?
I have seen,
Uh-huh.
not from me, but what I've seen
Yeah.
in my lifetime. It's like in St. Martin, like everything is possible.
Okay, let me give you now the government side,
Right.
since maybe you're not too familiar with it. If you request land, you get a draft decree.
Yeah.
In the draft decree, it would say that Oral Gibbs requests land in Phillipsburg in this vicinity. It's approximately 400 square meters. Then an instruction goes to the cadastre for them to stake out that land and give the exact measurements. After that, you get a made brief. Let's say you do it in 2025, it would say 102 of 2025, which would mean that 102 lots was staked out in 2025. You get that letter. Cadastre then sends it back to government. Government then incorporates it in a definitive decree. You get that definitive decree. You go to the notary. You pay for the transfer fees. You pay the first month FPA. It's notarized. Then a copy is sent to Cadastre for your land to be registered. That's it. None of those procedures was followed in 2016. None. What was done was a letter was given and a draft decree even. Some have draft decrees, some don't, where if the land becomes government owned in the future, you will get it. And that's why the court threw it out, not once, but twice, in the court geding, which is the injunction, and also in the court of first instance. So I'm saying all these things, Oral, because, I mean, a picture was painted, character assassination attempt was done, and it's clear that people are going the extra mile to mislead others to suit their own needs. And for me, I just try to focus on getting the job done for the people.
I'll tell you this, and this, normally I don't talk about myself, but I'm gonna be, and you're familiar with it, the Ring Road property.
Yes.
2014.
Yes.
There's a deed that for that property between my wife and I and the government of St. Martin, right? And up to now, nothing has been done. You was minister, I met
Correct.
with you and everything else. But now, there's a trench running through and it's even bigger. So, and I told the current minister through channels, don't take it personal if we go to court with the government. Because it's not personal.
No, and I understand your
See,
frustration.
So that's when you asked me, I didn't want to answer right away because I see it looks like people in government is trying to now see how they can move me from there. And that's going to be a terrible, vicious fight.
Wow.
You see, so that's what I'm saying.
That's what happened.
You got to be careful.
One of my and I just, you know, since we're talking about it, it's all the people that have the lot there. The problem is indeed the trench. And government did not have the finances to be able to fix that as it should have been. And before it was even issued to you and the others, it should have been done in order for you to do what it was issued to you to do. So now what happened is, former minister at the time, whoever, signed things without the proper infrastructure being there, and now you're stuck for over a decade, you and others. So it was a quagmire, but taking it away, I think that's a next level.
Well, let's put it this way. It appears like that because of what's going on now. And that's unfortunate. And it happens a lot in St. Martin because now people are saying, hey, wait. But you know what? I lost a lot of money because I was on Pawn Island. I had to move from Pawn Island to there. So hundreds of thousands of dollars we have lost. If we go to court with the government, first thing they're going to say, Oral Gibbs is anti-St. Martin. He loves St. Martin. Look what he's doing to the government of St. Martin. It doesn't have to get that far, but sometimes it happens.
Come to a resolution.
And I understand your point as minister. You met with us and everything. It couldn't be done, fine. But the way I see things happening right now is why I'm a little hesitant to say.
I understand.
So I don't want to put you in the spot there, but I had to bring that up because of what this.
But you know why I like your example? Because your example is different examples that people are going through. And somebody somewhere listening to this can relate to exactly what you're saying. So.
Well, you know, I mean, I know the first time I had you in the program as Minister of Rome, you spoke about development of homes for people. I sense you're not too happy because that didn't materialize that much.
When I say I'm not too happy, yes, indeed, I'm very disappointed because I couldn't get it done. There were so many different roadblocks put in place to avoid me from getting it done. And it seems right now in the next 4 years, it still won't get done because of the demeanor, the character, and the behaviors that we're seeing displayed in this current administration. Oral, the reality is, St. Martin, the island, is not growing. It's only growing by population, so it's not growing in size. You hear a lot of complaints about buildings being too tall. Mark my words, within the next 10 years, you won't see any building permit being approved for maybe less than 5 stories. You know why?
Gotta go up, yeah.
You have to go up. There's no way. But the best thing to do is controlling it. If you control it, somebody told me once, start your own fire because then you can control it. If you don't start your own fire, you allow things to get burned in anticipation of the fire, you won't have any control, and then you have a bigger problem.
Yeah.
So for me, when some local developers want to build a 15, 16 story, and then you're being told, oh, but Doran went against the draft zoning that only would allow 4 or 5 stories there, but there was no town hall meeting held in the Cooper Coy Lowlands area, which was done in Miller Region and Dutch Quarter, which that planning permit has expired. That never happened down there, so it's not applicable down there. So if you try to come with a zoning, so to speak, of 15 years ago and try to apply it in 2025, then you have absolutely no vision. Where the Bible speaks about if without vision the people will perish, then I believe that we're down a very slippery slope. However, I want to reassure the population that the faith that you put in me, just know that I will not go down surrendering, I will go down swinging, because I believe in people, I believe in your dreams, I believe in excelling to the most. I have a fundamental issue with seeing that everyone can come to St. Martin and flourish and not our own. A lot that came against me, Oral, was because I was fighting for a lot of the small man and them to get opportunities. And that is a serious problem to the regime, the elite regime that believe that they own St. Martin and nobody else is able to thrive. The other day, somebody came to visit me, a political friend, so to speak. They said, oh, this is a home, your home, nice. I said, yes, this is a home that, according to them, I'm not supposed to have. Because if I'm able to build on Abby and Henrietta roof, a little 2-bedroom to put my children in, hey, good man.
Happy with that.
You're not allowed to dream for bigger things. And this is my issue with this current situation that is taking place.
Well, you sound like me.
where the Summit Resort was.
Yeah.
You're talking about misclassification, but there was a hotel there.
Yeah.
So it is not like something new. And for me, I would fight tooth and nail, and people would swear that I have some vested interest in it. I have no interest. My interest is seeing somebody else being able to execute their dreams, because everybody came here and benefited overall.
Look, I hear you.
Let's get passionate with these things.
I hear you, and I say, boy, you sound like me, because you don't hear a politician talk like that too often in St. Martin, right? I know you got to go somewhere else, and we other times, so we have a minute in closing. You want anything else you want to add?
Yes, I just want to reassure the people of St. Martin that there's a fire still burning inside of me in order to see us move forward, to see us excel. And for me, being exposed to a lot of things as the Minister of Rummy, I know that there's a lot of potential for us to be able to enhance our housing market and create opportunities for those middle-class individuals that want to own their own home, where now they are not seeing any light at the end of the tunnel. I will be doing a reminder session then, so to speak, via letters to the current administration in case they can't figure it out, as to offering my assistance to get these projects coming to fruition. Honestly, I'm not too hopeful and believe that they will take it up, but I just hope they do, because I believe that this is the only way we're able to really produce for our people in terms of allowing them to own a piece of our rock. That is what I want to say in closing. And God bless us all, because I know that we are in some trying times as a country.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And that's it for now here on Speaking About Everything. See you next time on Speaking About Everything on Hot 99.9 FM radio, Facebook, and YouTube. Take care. Bye.